Dr. Jane Goodall, bonjour.
Bonjour.
Et merci de nous faire l'honneur de cet entretien. Thank you so much for giving us some of your time today. It's a great privilege to talk to you. You're giving a speech this Saturday at the UNESCO here in Paris in front of dozens of climate activists, scientists, and leaders. You're on course to travel more than 300 days this year alone, on the year of your 90th birthday. What keeps you going after all these years, day after day?
Well, what keeps me going is the fact that right now the world is a mess. And, you know, I care really passionately about the natural world, the environment, not just the chimpanzees, but all the other animals. But I also care about children. And I care about the people around the world who are so suffering today. And because, I don't know, I was given a gift that when I speak, people listen. And people who are losing hope, I seem to be able to give them more hope, to enable everybody to roll up their sleeves and take action. So I have to, there's nothing I can do, I have to keep going.
And among the people who will listen to you tomorrow, there'll be about 100 ambassadors who will attend your speech. Just 2 days before the COP16 starts, the UN Conference for Biodiversity. What do you plan on telling them? What do you expect from countries, from world leaders during this COP16?
Well, we always hope, don't we, that plans will be made, promises will be made, commitments, but sometimes it ends up as just words. I mean, I think of the very first climate change meeting in Paris, that very famous one, but none of the countries actually honored what they said they would do. And still more words than action. So there's more determination now, there's more people understanding that really the climate of the world is changing.
Many scientists and climate activists have criticized the way the COP conferences are designed in terms of who's attending and how the decisions are made. What is the importance to you of these events? Do you think they actually make a difference?
Well, I know that one of the differences made is that people are networking behind the scenes, and that sometimes leads to very positive results. But me personally, you know, I prefer just to go and meet with people individually, talk to people as I do around the world.
The WWF just published its Living Planet report with very concerning conclusions in it, stating that the average size of wildlife populations has fallen by 73% in the last 50 years. After all these years of activism, all you've done, how do you feel when you see those numbers? Why does biodiversity still seem to be less under the spotlight than climate is?
Yeah, well, actually those two are linked like this, climate and biodiversity, because as the planet heats, this is having a tremendous effect on biodiversity, along with, I think one of the other major issues for biodiversity is industrial agriculture with its pesticides and herbicides. And you know that when it comes to animals, it takes an awful lot of water to change vegetable to animal protein. And there's a lot of CO2 produced with all the machinery. And then on top of that, the animals are producing methane gas, very vicious greenhouse gas.
Is it something that people don't understand enough, that climate and biodiversity are actually linked together, like you just said?
I think people don't understand, and I think sometimes, you know, scientific reports are a bit too scientific, and just the very word biodiversity, for a lot of people, you know, I mean, I remember when I first heard it, I thought, what's that? And of course now it's much more normally used, but even so, if reports are made in language that everybody can understand. So when I began writing for scientific journals, I said I will not write anything that can't be understood by an average 16-year-old.
You've been a great advocate and a great instigator of efforts to reconcile wildlife population, wildlife conservation, sorry, and the development of local populations, especially in Africa. You've done famously so in Tanzania with more than 100 communities. We are seeing today countries like Namibia and Zimbabwe faced with a famine, authorizing the killing of elephants and other animals for food. What do you say to poor and developing countries and their leaders? What should your approach, the approach you experimented in Tanzania and other places, become the standard approach for authorities?
Well, it's different because different countries do face different problems. And if climate change is plunging a country into a long, long drought, then it is a real problem because elephants require an awful lot of water and food. And I've seen pictures of the Serengeti where hundreds of wildebeest were just corpses because there wasn't any water. So, you just have to sometimes make a compromise, as long as you don't compromise your values.
But is it still something important to you that more countries get their inspiration from that idea that you have?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It came to a head for me. I flew over the tiny Gombe National Park, where we was in our 64th year of studying the chimps. And in 1960, when I began, it was part of the great equatorial forest belt stretching across Africa. By the mid-1980s, I was shocked to see Gombe was an island of forest and all around were bare hills. And that's when it hit me. These people are cutting down the trees in their struggle to survive, to make money from charcoal or timber or more land to grow food for their families. So if we don't help them find ways of making a living without destroying the environment, we can't save chimps, forests, or anything else. So that led to this Tukari program, very holistic, including things like scholarships for children's education, microfinance, so that poor people can start their own environmentally sustainable business. Very successful. It's now in 6 other African countries where we study chimpanzees. And it works. We've just written a whole new book, which hopefully will be translated into French soon.
Hopefully. We know today that the Amazon forest emits more carbon than it absorbs, which makes the Congolian rainforest the main carbon sink in our world, at a time where it is threatened by a massive and accelerating deforestation. What measures do you think should be implemented by national and regional authorities, as well as the international community, to protect this place?
Well, there's a whole range of things there. One, like in Brazil, the new government with Lula, that has managed to stop a lot of deforestation, but now there's big efforts by the timber companies to reverse some of those decisions. So you have to deal with corruption. I mean, obviously, legislation is important, but at the same time, you've got to help the local people, because very often they fall in with the deforestation to make money. And I just flew over the Brazilian Amazon and saw the result of illegal gold mining using mercury. I've never been more shocked. Miles of the river polluted. It's all illegal.
The founder of Sea Shepherd, Paul Watson, who's currently facing extradition to Japan for his anti-whaling activities, just asked Emmanuel Macron to grant him political asylum. Do you think France has a responsibility to protect him today?
Well, I'm not sure if it's a responsibility, but ethically, I think it would be very important. I mean, we know whales are incredibly intelligent, long-lived, and to kill them by shooting a harpoon with explosives in it, I mean, this is horrendous. And there still is an international law against whaling. So basically, Japan broke it. And what they're wanting to extradite him for is because he violated something 10 years ago. and it wasn't even true what they said. And I've been writing letters and sending poll messages of support, and quite a lot of people. So I just hope and pray that the Danish government thinks twice before letting him be extradited.
We are actually seeing climate activism being more and more criminalized and repressed, even in Western democracies. We also see more and more climate activists being threatened. How do you feel about it?
Well, I think that climate change is so important that desperate measures are necessary. I mean, my personal way isn't any kind of violence, but governments, businesses, you know, they really have to start pulling in their belts and taking action, not just greenwashing. It's important. I mean, there's global guardians. I'm a global guardian or planetary guardian, and they put together a very, very detailed report, and in 9 different things like climate change, like loss of biodiversity, like destruction of the soil, they gave an account of how many years we have left before a tipping point is reached. The answer was 5. 5 years to start turning things around. It's really, you know, people have got to understand. And even the big businesses, they'll be out of business if this happens.
Speaking of 5 years to act, your work helped a new generation of climate activists and leaders to emerge all around the world. What do you want to say to young people worrying about climate change, worrying about how urgent it is, and wondering whether and how they can make a difference?
Yeah, well, you know, the Jane Goodall Institute has our Roots and Shoots program. Young people, kindergarten through university, it's in 71 countries now. We have many, many, many of our young people from 12 upwards, and they are doing everything they can to fight climate change. So, you know, yes, business has responsibility, yes, government, but all of us, each one of us every day, we can think about our own environmental footprint. We need to move away towards a plant-eating diet. We need to think about saving energy. We need to think about, do we really need to take a car, one person, or can we move back to a more efficient public transport? Things like that. So all of us have a responsibility. And the young people, once in Roots and Shoots, they're allowed to choose their projects. So when they choose them, they're passionate and they discuss it and they roll up their sleeves. They're taking action all over the world. And I think it's really important that the media, we need to know the doom and gloom, but there's so many amazing projects and incredible people around the world. Because I'm traveling all around the world, I get a chance to meet them. And I want more of that, because that's what gives people hope. And then they're more likely to start taking action. Because you won't take action if you don't think there's any point.
Dr. Jane Goodall, thank you so much for giving us some of your time and for all your inspiring words. Dr. Jane Goodall, merci beaucoup.
Thank you.